So before we look at the strategies to prevent stent migration, let's ask ourselves, which is the high risk subset where stent migration would be common? So if you are dealing with mild or no coarctation, I'll show you one of the examples. You will ask me why no coarctation requires stenting. When you are dealing with membranous type of coarctation, where the membrane is so soft that if you were to undersize the stent would just fall into the descending aorta. If you have associated aortic regurgitation, because of the pulsatility of the aorta, you may end up with stent migration. Or if there is severe dilatation of a pre-coarct or post-coarct, or more commonly both pre and post-coarct segments. And last but not the least, stenting of the aortic arch. So this I would call as high-risk subsets for stent migration. Now this is an example of where you need to stent despite there being no residual coarctation. This is an example of what I would call as a membranous coarct, which is very soft as compared to an hourglass coarct where stent migration would be extremely uncommon. This is an example of aortic regurgitation. Look at the pulsatility. And more so, if you have a mild coarct in presence of aortic regurgitation, that's a perfect recipe for stent migration. And this is an example where you see the pre and the post-coarct segments, each of them measuring around 29 millimeters. So this is an example where there is a chance that if you don't size your stent properly and if you don't deploy your stent properly, you may end up with stent migration. And this is an example of a pseudoaneurysm arising from undersurface of the aortic arch where you need to stent the arch where the stent migration would be common. So first and foremost is measurements. Don't select a frame where you see the maximum contrast, like you see the frame on the left. You take a stent which is in peak systole, where the diameter is maximum, and in the presence of a mild coarct, if you were to take 13.5 instead of 16, believe me, you will end up with stent migration. So whenever you have a mild coarct, you have to be sure that you are measuring the maximum diameter and not select a frame where the contrast is maximum. The second tip is that please crimp your stent in such a way that it is extremely secured. And sometimes in doing that, to get it extremely secured, you lose the connectivity between the proximal, no, can you go back? Go in front. Okay, I don't know how this works. Anyway, so when you try to have the continuity between when you try to crimp the stent very tightly, you lose the continuity between proximal and distal part of the balloon. And in doing that, sometimes you may end up inflating only the proximal part of the balloon with stent moving distally. And I'll show you an example. Can we play this? I don't know how it plays. Okay. Now this is a case, you can see that. What is happening in the second frame is that actually the balloon is slipping, the stent is slipping, only the proximal part of the balloon is getting dilated. And when this thing happens, there is a chance that the stent will go distally. We were fortunate in this that we managed to get the stent right in position, and we were able to get the stent in position and get the excellent result following stent deployment. As against this, if you see the second row of CNAs, you will see that we don't come out of the sheath completely. We keep the sheath in the proximal part of the balloon. We confirm that the distal and proximal part of the balloon are in communication, and only then we withdraw the whole sheath and then deploy the stent. So this is one of the important aspects. Can we go further? I don't know, this, go back. So this is the another trick that you can use, and that is of rapid ventricular pacing. In this case, when there is no coarctation at all, I think what we have done is we have used rapid ventricular pacing, as you will see in the second frame, and then is the third frame where you will see that there is hardly any extravasation and the entire pseudoaneurysm is beautifully exteriorized. Now, using a bib balloon is another way of preventing the migration, and this was a 30 millimeter bib, and you can see this is a 10 zig CP stent which is used to take care of this coarctation. And this is what I mean, that this membranous coarct is so soft that everything just opens up. And you can see that we have got an excellent result following deployment using a bib balloon. And this is the last one, that is use of combination, where we have used a rapid ventricular pacing with bib. And you can see that in the second frame, that is the bib balloon going up, and during the bib balloon going up, the ventricle is being paced rapidly so that you have, I'm sorry for this because there's no way I can control the playing of these movies. So that is the bib balloon is going up during rapid ventricular pacing, and most of the aneurysm is well exteriorized. So in conclusion, stent migration is a major complication, more so if you are using covered stent. High-risk candidates include mild or no coarctation, membranous or soft coarctation, pulsatile aorta more so in presence of a mild coarct, severe pre and post dilatation of the aorta and the aortic arch stenting, and these are the various strategies of accurate measurements, adequate crimping, but to see that there is a patency or continuity between proximal and distal lumen, confirming the continuity of proximal and distal balloon lumen while crimping, using rapid ventricular pacing, using balloon in balloon, or combination of rapid ventricular with bib, as I showed you in some of the cases. Thanks for your patient hearing, ladies and gentlemen.